There you go.
And we're up. So,
All right.
welcome to the Tuesday version of FICA. I'm going to do my best today to not say good morning or this morning or anything that has to do with our normal Sunday morning show. We have Trevor Husseini. Do I have that last name right?
That's correct.
All
Okay.
right.
Trevor is a senior software engineer. He's dedicated his talents to the web and mobile application industry for the last 8 years. When he's not squashing bugs or honing his skills to stay relevant in a constantly evolving market, he can usually be found reading a fat stack of comics. We're going to get into that. In the studio producing music, as you can tell, he's got better gear than we do. Our guest has better microphones and gear than we do, which isn't difficult, by the way. Or in the field flying his UAV. We're going to dig into that too. I have not seen a bio where I've gone, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. Born in Augsburg, Germany, Trevor is of Polynesian and Melanesian descent by way of his father, with deep roots in Pongo, Pongo, American Samoa. Here's the paper. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from the University of Arizona, with a minor in mathematics, and currently resides in the 808 in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Nice.
So, Trevor, the average IQ on our show just went like through the roof. We're happy to have you. Oh man, the all those things interest me. Not enough for me to go get a degree or actually study all those things, but every piece of that is
Crazy.
things that we do. How did you end up? Did you want to be an electrical? Let me go back to that. Electrical and computer engineer as a kid, or how'd you end up in that study?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always kind of been interested in electronics and taking things apart as a kid. But I can't say that it was my intended career as a child.
Yeah.
As a child looking up to my father, I always thought I was going to join the military and, be a soldier. But yeah, it was something around the time when I was in high school, getting close to graduation, trying to pick out career paths and noticing that tech is constantly evolving. It's constantly booming. The salaries are generally high and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. If anything, it's getting more pervasive in the world. So it was my plan A. It was the sure bet, Originally, I wanted to go into music production, but of course, after talking to Dad, what's the likelihood you're going to be the next new producer? You can do that after you go to school, and it made a lot of sense to me.
Awesome.
So,
Naki's going to get all in your business. I was just, talking about school and that kind of thing, but Naki's going to ask you.
I know. I was like
single,
married. Like, what is there something that is not in the bio? Like.
Well, I'm definitely not single. I live with my girlfriend, and you
Yay.
probably know her. Her wonderful artwork showcased here in the back.
Oh, it's beautiful.
We've been together for, going on 6 years in October. So, first year and a half was a long distance relationship. So I was living in Arizona at the time, and she was here in Hawaii. And then after about a year and a half of commuting back and forth and meeting up in various places, it was time to make a choice. Either you come here to the desert or I finally moved to Polynesia. So
yeah,
made the jump, and we've been together ever since.
That's
Nice.
Beautiful artwork in the back.
Yeah.
Very.
Does she sell her artwork? Is she?
Yeah. So
shout her out.
shout out to my boo. Yeah, so she goes by the handle on most social media platforms is Urbanesian. So you see her on Instagram, yeah, Twitter, Tumblr. She's got her own Society 6 store, and she's even got her own website where she does custom invitations and the whole like. So yeah, that's the queen.
Oh my God, I share her work all the time on social media. I've
noticed, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my God, I gotta talk to her. That's awesome. Now, with the engineer, like you went to school, and the person that we know in common is Manu. And so he led us in your direction. He was like, you gotta meet this guy. And he was like on. And I was like, okay. So perfect for what we do. We push and promote positive Pacific Islander role models and businesses and, you know, just everything. And, you know, the reason why we wanted to highlight you is because, you know, and we talk about this all the time, how kids see us as, or we're stereotyped as athletes and actors, which is, oh my gosh, nothing wrong with that, right? But we want to show the kids that we do everything. You know, we want to show them that we're a software engineer, we're educators, you know, so to make it normal for them, so they're not scared to try something new. So I think it's awesome that you agreed to come on, and we're grateful for your time and space. Tell us about, do you see a lot of PIs in your field, or are you finding it slowly, or no?
Um, well, I guess to put it quite frankly, the software industry, at least in the US, from what I've noticed, is similar to virtually every other industry in the US. It's primarily male and it's primarily white. So you don't meet a lot of Pacific Islanders, especially on the mainland. I will say though, you know, out here in Hawaii at the very least, I do see a lot more diversity. You know, the team that I work on, there's 3 of us, and my boss, he's from Laos, and my other coworker, he's a local boy. He's Japanese, local Japanese. So it's definitely, it's very dependent upon where you're working. But yeah, in the mainland, it's very white and it's very male. There's not many people that look like us. But, you know, I do think it's important to showcase and to talk about our experiences to get more of us in the field. So, you know, I actually have a second cousin that I'm really close to. Shout out to Sonny. He does virtually the same thing. He's a few years older than I am, but he lives here in Hawaii and he builds web and mobile apps. And then interestingly enough, you know, I was talking to one of my nephews this weekend who just got out of the Merchant Marine Academy, and he got accepted into U of A, and he was asking me what the difference between pursuing computer science and computer engineering is. So, you know, things are definitely changing. I think our youth are starting to see the value because, you know, at the end of the day, we all can't be soldiers. We all can't be ball players, you know?
But,
I think that's
and what
important.
is the difference between the two?
Well, the way I boiled it down for him was, do you want to wear a lab coat or do you want to wear a blue collar? So a computer scientist, you know, these are the guys that are pioneering the way. They tend to be in labs. They're developing new algorithms, new languages, and so forth. But as an engineer, I take that science and I apply it to the real world and make it work. So at the end of the day, I really don't care what the science you says is behind it.
Yeah.
I want to know how this works, and I want to figure out how to adapt it into a problem that I'm currently facing. So we'll see. He's still very early in his career, and there's a lot of overlap between the course schedule. So for now, he's just going to go undeclared and, you know, take his computer science classes, and, you know, maybe by his second or third year, he'll choose a path. But it was just really exciting because I'd never gotten a phone call from any family member like, hey, I'm thinking about pursuing computer science. Like, what do you think about that? And I'm just jumping for joy.
That's awesome, right? That's so awesome.
Yeah.
What's a day in the life of your job? Like what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I guess my workflow is very mixed. So I do have a lot of planned projects that, you know, we've already identified the scope, we've already put a timeline to it and so forth. But a lot of it is interrupt driven. You know, first thing I log on, I check my emails to see what came through last night, what came through this morning. Are there any fires that I need to put out? Every morning I have a stand up with our entire digital team where we discuss who's working on what, you know, what our priorities are. And then, you know, I typically go with like a 90-minute cadence. So I'll develop or program debug for 90 minutes, and then I'll take about a 15-20 minute break and then back at it for 90 minutes, lunch, and then repeat that cycle over again. So day to day kind of varies. A good day is all planned development. You know, I know exactly what projects I'm working on and I'm plowing through those. A bad day, I'm woken up at 6 a.m. Something crashed last night. Something's not, you know, and because we're, you know, in Hawaii and a lot of our clients, you know, are on the mainland or in different time zones, it's one of those things that we have to get up and start working immediately.
That could be 6 hours. Well, I mean, it could be around the world, but East Coast is 6 hours ahead of you, huh?
Yeah, 6 hours. I mean, I got a launch tomorrow that starts at 10 p.m. Eastern time, which this is the only time that the time zone difference works in my favor, because I'm like, oh, 4 o'clock, I can manage that, you
Yeah.
know. Sorry to you guys, but I'll make it happen.
When I first moved to Hawaii, the playoffs had just started, the NFL playoffs, and I just moved to Hawaii, didn't know anything about the time change, and my brother was telling me, you're getting up at like, 6:30. I said, what are you talking about? It's the 6:30, and yeah, the games start, the time difference. You're getting up to watch football like sleepy-eyed, and you get used to it, but the time difference is big when you're in Hawaii, and that's 3 hours, behind everybody else.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's terrible.
how's COVID affected your workflow, or
Oh
is
yeah.
it? Yeah.
I mean, it's affected my workflow in the sense that I'm not in an office. So as you can see, I'm at home. I've been working from home since 17th of March. And basically my company, they sent out a poll, asked everybody when they felt comfortable going into the office. And there was enough concern about the virus that they basically told us, nobody can tell you to come back into the office for the rest of the year. So, the environment has changed. My workload has changed a little bit. We've been about just as busy, if not busier, thanks to COVID. A lot of our clients want, specific messaging up on their sites, or, showcasing the state's resources, those types of things. But all in all, I would say not a lot has changed. This particular job was built to be remote. All I need is a good internet connection, and I can do it from wherever I am.
Is there what's in your future? Do you see yourself in 5 to 7 years doing the same thing? I saw a lot of entrepreneurial things in the bio. Where do you see yourself in a few years from now?
Oh man, I feel like I'm being interviewed for a job. I just want to do this.
He is in HR, though. He is in HR.
That makes sense. I would believe it. I've had a lot of people ask me that question, and typically once you get about 7 to 10 years into software development, you kind of have a choice to make. Do you like developing software, or do you want to take the skills that you've learned and apply them to management? And after a lot of thought, I mean, I came to the conclusion that I actually like doing this work, and I want to continue doing this work. That doesn't go to say, I want my position or my title to continue to be software engineer, but I would like to move up within the ranks of engineering to ultimately get to some type of directorship role where, day to day, I'm not developing so much as I'm providing guidance for the company overall, where we go technologically. But yeah, I plan on doing this until these fingers no longer work anymore. I want to keep riding it out because it's good money. There's good benefits, and I think there's a lot of longevity in this game.
Awesome. So DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
without any question, Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel. Don't get me wrong, I got love for Batman and Superman, but and this really goes back to how I identify culturally, but it's not just Marvel, it's primarily just the X-Men, because I think that particular sect of Marvel appeals to very marginalized groups. And as somebody who grew up without many role models to look up to on screen, I look to the mutants because as a mixed kid, I never felt like I fit in anywhere else. I felt like not necessarily homo superior, but I felt different, and I gravitated towards the X-Men. And I've been rocking with them ever since.
That's awesome. That's like Carl, and he has that thing with Star Wars. He's into Star Wars, and he has this, is just because of personal reasons. But hello, you want to tell your Star Wars story?
Well, I think that books and series and shows and movies, those kind of things, they click somewhere. It's funny that one of my friends was the head writer for X-Men First Class, Zach Stentz, and he was, I think it's the same way that he kind of saw that, like he was the smartest kid in school, but almost too smart. Like people would, if you're that much smarter than everybody, you're a different kind, you don't feel like everybody else. And I don't know exactly how Zach felt, but I do know that everybody, you're afraid to say, things around him because you're like, am I going to sound dumb? So I think that there was a certain piece of that as he was going through school of he didn't feel like he necessarily fit in. I mean, there was points where he was going down in movie, you're supposed to film a movie and all we're trying to do is like switch cameras. Like that's the level that the rest of the class is at. And he's down at the beach, skipping the rest of the day, getting like time lapse motion of the tide coming in, and everybody's like, what the heck are you doing? And now he's writing he's writing comics and movies. But I think those are things that strike us early. Mine was, I'm adopted, so the whole journey or the quest of Star Wars, that was, as a kid, I was like fascinated by that, of the quest of Luke to find out who his dad was, or whatever the journey and the quest was. I was always interested in it. So it's interesting. The X-Men are the the drive behind it. Really sad news with the passing of the actor with the Black Panther, and I think that 43. Especially because I'm 50 plus, it's like, I think that's young, but it is, I mean, that's young in life. That's not, that's just incredibly a young age to go on such a huge platform. And even to myself, I mean, I didn't really follow, specifically, but it was usually private about it. Like the first time I knew that he had cancer was when I read that he had passed. Were you a big fan of that movie, The Black Panther?
I loved Black Panther, especially for what it did for African Americans. I like I said, I think representation is very important, and knowing that there are a lot of multicultural superheroes out there, especially in the Marvel universe, I'd been waiting for a film like that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Chadwick. I've seen a lot of his movies, and it's such a terrible loss because I think he was the generation after Denzel's Denzel, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The breadth of this work, the different types of characters he was able to play. Not many people can do that, But the thing that just baffles me is how, like you said, nobody knew. His, only the people who needed to know knew. And it was just so heartbreaking to hear that. But at the same time, I have so much more respect for him now. Like he knew he was going to die, and yet he continued to put out content for his fans, for the people, and that's just a beautiful thing that you can't explain.
That's a hard thing to do, right? He's working and going through all the struggles of cancer and just working alone is takes a lot of energy and time. Have you always been into comic books, and did someone get you into it, or you just have always been fascinated with?
Yeah, I still remember what the little turnstiles used to look like on the base exchange my dad used to go to. But yeah, there was something about walking past those and seeing all the beautiful artwork and all these different characters on it that kind of drew me to it. And I can't say that I was the best collector or the best fan as a child, because how finances go. But definitely now that I'm older and I have the means to do it, I've become quite religious with it, if you will. Every week I'm at the comic book store, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and it's just it's a way to escape the reality and still enjoy wonderful stories.
Is it different as a kid? I remember, and I was a huge comic book fan when I was a kid. And I mean, it was whatever comic book my parents would buy me. I didn't care whether it was DC, Marvel, whatever, as long as I was getting stories to read and be entertained. But it was a different, once I was old enough to buy them myself, it was a different experience. Now that I was, I had my own money and that kind of thing, it changed for me. Is this the same for you, as you just get some of the same feelings you did when you were a kid, when you're going, obviously you can afford to buy whatever comic book you want, Is there a different feeling now when you're going to the comic book store, or do you still feel that little kid, the rush that you get when you go to see new comics?
Oh, I'm still very much as excited as I was as a kid, you know, if not more excited now that, you know, this is my money. I'm not buying this with my allowance from dad,
Right.
you know. But I think the frame or the lens that you read these stories in is a lot different when you're older. You know, there's a lot of subtle things talking about socioeconomic issues or those types of things that as a kid I would completely gloss over it and not see it, you know, but then you go back and reread those stories as an adult and you're like, oh wow, they're talking about racism and misogyny and all these different types of things that, you know, concepts that just didn't resonate with you as a kid, you know. Like the perfect example for me is the cartoon on Nickelodeon, Rocko's Modern Life. You know, I didn't find out until, you know, 15 years after watching that show that he actually worked in a sex call center, you know, and you can see screenshots where, you know, he's there. And as a kid, I had never seen that, you know, but it completely changes how you see some of these things and how you interpret them.
Yeah, there's a ton of that where people will say, yeah, that show was really socially forward. And it was when, you know, I look at it as a show from my childhood, or, I don't know, simple things like The Lion King or something. And, you know, I wasn't even a kid when that came out, but I didn't see until I read about it. And I'm like, wow, yeah, there was, I never even, you know, so there's a big piece of that. The same way when I was reading comic books, I didn't understand any of the social overtones or any of that. I just wanted to be entertained, and I read them. But to your point, yeah, you get somebody writes something about a comic book that you read and you go, huh, that's news. I didn't see that when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. Um, so UAV, are those drones? Is that what
Yeah.
UAV is? How did you
Yeah.
get in? Is that a comic book kind of little kid thing where you're like, I get an airplane, I can fly it around, or how did you get involved with the drones?
I mean, I think a lot of it is just the fascination with technology. And, you know, once drones first hit the market, like realizing the potential that this technology could have, not only from a photography perspective, but from, you know, fighting fires or, you know, the whole hoax of Amazon delivering packages via drone. I'm like, this is the future manifesting itself. These are the beginning phases, you know. But I can't take a lot of credit for that. I literally, a drone showed up on my doorstep. I have a good friend who is he is oh gosh, why am I struggling? He's in civil engineering, but he's more on the management side. And he was working on an oil rig. And apparently he had not enough time, but too much money. So for one of my birthdays, like 5 years ago, he bought me the DJI Phantom 3 standard and showed up on my front door. And I'm just like, bro, he's like, yeah, try it out because I want to get myself one. And so that was really the gateway, you know, was a present. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, you got cool toys. You got a mic that we're envious of. You got headphones we're envious.
Right.
I'm like looking at this going, I like that. I like that look.
Did
I'll
you
send you a list when we're done.
now? Did you grow up in Pango, or did your dad grow up in Pango?
So my dad was actually born in Suva in Fiji.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
So my family's migration path, as far as I understand it, is from India to Fiji, Fiji to Samoa, and then my father and I to the United States. So, you know, when I tell people I'm Afghasi or I'm Samoan, it's an overstatement, but it's what I identify with. It's the
Right.
way that I was raised. So, you know, when you really boil it down, my mother, she is German, so I'm half German, and then my father is Indo-Fijian Samoan, you know. But it just makes easier to tell people like, oh, you Samoan? Yeah. Well,
Yes, yes, way easier.
certain. Yep.
Way easier. And were you
Um,
in Pango for long, or?
so well, I can't say I've never lived in Pango. I've visited my family in Pango a lot. I spent actually my 4th grade year there. It's one of those things where my dad's like, oh, he's getting to be that age. Send him
Yeah.
to go live with grandma and I'll go understand your roots, you know?
Yeah.
So I lived there for my 4th grade year with my grandma and all my aunts. Like the vast majority of my immediate family, my aunts, uncles, cousins are all still in Pango. The only one to actually leave was my father, and then I have an aunt who also lives in California. But aside from that, everybody's still in Samoa, and you know we go back as often as we can, and you know make sure all keeping in touch. Thank you, Facebook.
Oh, right, right. We love Facebook because of that. We get to watch our family grow up or watch the kids grow up or stay connected and see what our siblings are doing because they don't answer their phone.
It's a lot different than when I was a kid, though. I still remember the days where, you know, nobody had a cell phone and my dad would call with grandma. And next thing you know, you hear him yelling, "Hey, get down here, talk to your grandma." And you'd come
Right,
down and, you know, tell
right,
grandma that thing
right,
you was telling me.
right. With the just I want just to head back to being a software engineer. The classes that you like, they say doctors you have to be into science and math and how do you find the pathway to being a software engineer? Like, is it everything? Is it math? Is it numbers? Is it if a kid is looking and wants to be a software engineer, what classes should they take? What you know what I mean? Like what should they be in or yeah, basically what classes should they be taking so that it can lead them to that road?
Well, I guess it really depends on where you want to go in the software game. You know, like my cousins and I, we've ended up in the web and mobile application space. And to be quite honest, there's not that much emphasis on math. I mean, if you were to ask me to solve a differential equation right now, I would probably log off of this video call and tell you, I'll see you in an hour, you know. A lot of the things that I learned in school, whether, you know, it's chemistry or physics, or things that I don't use every day.
Right.
But, you know, at the same time, you do have to have some interest in computers, in technology. You know, you do have to understand basic principles of mathematics and how things work, you know. But at the core of what I do is logic, you know, cause and effect, understanding that if I do this, then this happens. If you can wrap your mind around that, or around iteration or AI or these types of things, then you'll be fine. You know, you'll be able to find a job, no doubt. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you learn in school you just don't end up needing, you know. And to be fair,
Right.
I'm not going to plug the college route because not everybody wants to go to college.
Right.
If you strictly learn development and you work on your personal portfolio, chances are there's a company out there that's at least going to entertain you coming on board as a software developer. You know,
Right.
it just makes it a little bit easier when you have the, you know, traditional certifications, if you will. But yeah, you got to like computers and you got to like a little bit of math, but don't let all of the, you know, crazy mathematical proofs scare you,
Scare
you know.
you.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's getting comfortable with failure, you know. As a, you know, as a kid going through middle school, high school, I mean, you name it, I did it. I was captain of the football team, homecoming king, 4.0 GPA, all that stuff. But I never really did anything that I couldn't do well without practicing. And then I got into college and I declared my major, and then I failed my first class. And, you know, I had to go to office hours and talk to the TA because I wasn't understanding things. And so it really, really helped me develop the engineering mindset of being okay with failure, being okay with being critiqued on your work, and learning how to basically use that as fuel to keep going, you know?
I don't think that's taught. I don't think it's prioritized enough. And that's something that coaches drilled into my head early on, is being able to deal with failure is more important than being able to deal with success, because
Right.
you hit the game-winning home run, like how hard is that to get, you know, you enjoy it, you run around the bases, everybody pats you on the back and you're great, you know, it's a great
Right.
day. You strike out 4 times at the plate. How do you handle that? Like, how do you deal with failure? And I think athletics, if it's taught the right way and coached the right way, you start to learn how to deal with failure. Like a baseball player, if you're successful 30% of the time, like you can fail 70% of the time. If you're successful 30% of the time, like you're $1 million player, you're hitting 300. But it's dealing with failure that I don't know that we stress enough as a society, that failure is okay. Like if you learn from it and you move forward. But I think there's a feeling, or I see people today that have a hard time when they don't get what they want, or
Yeah.
they fail, and it's going to take extra work or extra studying or extra something to get what they want. I think that I see people that don't deal with frustration or sadness or disappointment, and I wonder, it's not just coaching. It's not just an analogy for sports, but kids that throw tantrums, and I see them like we always see them, like we talk about that. You're in a grocery store and a kid throws himself on the floor and throws a tantrum, and the parents freaking out, right? And like yelling at the kid, and you can tell the kid's like, why are you making a big deal about it now? Like, because you're embarrassed. But
Right.
like, I always do this kind of stuff and you don't freak out. Um, and I think that's a really good point that you made, was you learned how to deal with not succeeding, and figuring out how you got around it. So you're in college, you fail, a class, or you don't do well at it.
I still at
How
that.
how do you how do you wrap your mind around that, and not say, well, I guess this isn't for me, and
Right.
walk away from it?
I mean, it's classic fork in the road. I can admit defeat and run home with my tail between my legs, or I can say not today. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try it again and see where my second attempt gets me. I think it goes back. It's a saying that I've heard. I don't know if anybody actually says it, but uncoachable kids become unteachable adults.
Right.
I think the foundation that a lot of my coaches, whether it was in Sierra Vista or in Mannheim, where I graduated from, they instilled a lot of that in me. Because I mean, even my senior year of high school, playing football, I was captain of the football team, but we didn't win a single game. We sucked, but we gave it our all, and we
Right.
dealt with it. You have to get comfortable with it and realize that it's not a personal attack on you, and the way that you're feeling is the way you're feeling that way for a particular reason. So you need to reflect on why you're feeling that way and basically respond to it. So for me, it was just a lot of grit. I don't think I failed my first class until maybe my third year, and I ended up going to school for 5 years. But I looked at how far I had come and how far I had to go, and I'm like, I can't turn back now.
Right.
The only way is through. Even if I don't end up using this degree, or I don't become a programmer, like, I need to prove to myself that I can get through this, and that the world is not going to best me,
Yeah.
because it hasn't bested me yet. I'm
That's
still
right.
here.
That's
Winning
right.
in life.
Yeah.
Right. I love that.
And that's what Naki had alluded to earlier. We're just trying to show, Pacific Islander kids that you can win in life at anything. And if it's as a professional wrestler, or as an actor, or a football player, or a rugby player, great, awesome. But if it's not, which, 90 whatever percent, it's not going
Yeah.
to be that, then there's people winning at life as, engineers, programmers, teachers,
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, and I think that's the big reason of why we started this, was because we wanted to show that, Naki coined it really well, that role models come in brown. They come in brown too, should be the, like, let's get
Hmm.
some press and some shine on people that are out there, doing it, that aren't necessarily athletes. We've had plenty of athletes on there. One of the things that, our connection to you was Jake, and I think we went three-quarters of the show before we start talking about football. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
that's somebody who was in the NFL, and
Yeah.
normally that would be that's the cherry on top. That's the crowning
Right.
achievement. And I don't. I mean, we were deep into the show before we even talked about the Giants.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't even know
cool.
he played football. I was like, oh my gosh, he's.
Yeah.
So it's
Jake and
important. It's important to see you, and see Jake doing what he's doing, and see
Right.
Ty doing what he's doing. All of these things are important. It's important for, not only the kids, because there's plenty of people to find their passion. You know, Society says at 18 we're supposed to know what we want to do. Well, some people want to know what they want to do at 12. You know what I mean? And they do it. And other people, they don't figure it out. It's not like this perfect timetable at 18 that we all just go, clicks and it's there. So to see, this story where people are pursuing their passion and doing it, is inspiring for not just kids. I mean, there's a lot of people that are like sitting there going, I was supposed to do more than I'm doing. Like I was destined for more than this. And when they see people like you pursuing your passion,
Yes.
it could wake up a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 50-year-old.
A 50-year-old.
Plenty of 50-year-olds wake up.
Lots and
Yeah.
lots.
So how'd you end up in Arizona? How'd you pick the Wildcats?
Military.
Oh, you were there.
Your dad is in the military.
So, I was born in Augsburg. We were there for probably about 3 or 4 years, and then my parents split up. And then basically the only thing my dad wanted out of the marriage was me, and he got restationed in Augusta, Georgia. So we spent a good 3 years in Augusta, and then around 3rd, 4th grade-ish, we moved to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, Sierra Vista. And then I was there, until my junior year of high school. So most of my formative years were actually spent in Southern Arizona in Sierra Vista. And then, we got stationed in Mannheim, Germany for my senior year, graduated there. And then when it came down to college, I'm like, well, where do I really want to go?
Yeah.
So my first choice was USC. I wanted to be a Trojan. I didn't get in there. I remember receiving the rejection notice and just, typical rebellious kid looking at him like, this basically says that they have enough brown people at USC and they don't want me here. So I'm like, no more Trojans ever. And then I ended up applying to Arizona State because that's where my cousin was going at the time. I got accepted there. And then finally an acceptance letter came from U of A, and they said, you know what, you're so awesome, we're going to give you some money to go to school here too. And I said, bye-bye ASU, I'm a Wildcat for life. Out of here.
That's so awesome. What about producing music? Are you a performer? Or are you a rapper? Are you a singer? Or are you?
I make some beats. I do a little raps here or there. A lot of my stuff is, I guess, for my eyes only. It's cheaper than therapy. It's a hobby that I picked up while I was like middle school, high school, or whatever. But it's just a medium for me to express what I want to say, and in a way that I have total control over.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I know, quite a few of the rappers and the Polynesian rappers in the industry. And, a big thing for me was that, I had to get plan A right. I needed to make sure that my primary hustle was going to keep me through. And it's only recently that I've started getting back into the craft. I mean, a lot of this infrastructure you see is stuff that I bought thanks to COVID. And now that I'm working from home, I'm like, well, perfect. I might have some more time. Let's dust off FL Studio and let's see what we can make, So, it's more of a project of passion, if you will.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you're, from the equipment that we see, it sounds like it's a deep, hard passion. Now, does your girlfriend sing? She gets in on the act, or she just leaves that to you?
Yeah. She don't get near the mic. She's off in graphics world and graphics land, and marketing, advertising, that whole shebang.
Yeah, that's awesome. I swear I didn't even know that was your girlfriend, but I love her work. I am one of the biggest fans. Like, I love her work. So put in a good word for me.
I will do.
Naki's going to name drop.
Right. So, no. So what is, when you're not working and you're not, doing all the other stuff how do you relax? Like, with all this pandemic and I think Hawaii has locked down kind of, you can't go anywhere. Like, how do you chill besides, your work and getting on the mic and reading? Like, can you chill?
Can I chill? I can kick it. No, I can. I promise you I can. Let's see. We covered reading. So, on top of comics, I do a lot of reading, fiction, nonfiction, whatever. Currently working on, what is this? Why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. It's an interesting book.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. It's a good one. I've been getting very heavily into African American authors and kind of reading some of these stories, especially with a lot of the stuff going on. So reading is one thing. You know, Honey Girl and I, we like to do a lot of cooking. We don't eat out too much. Not that we can eat out right now. Everything's to go. So cooking's definitely up there. We play some games. You know, I'm not as avid a gamer as I used to be. You know, no late night Call of Duty nights online with the homies or anything like that. But you know, a lot of stuff you can play on the Nintendo Switch where I can just pick it up, play a few puzzles, get some fulfillment, and put it down, not get sucked in. You know. You know, we like to go beach. We're not very outdoorsy, but we'll go to the beach, go snorkel and things like that.
What's your favorite beach?
Favorite beach? Oh,
because there's a lot of beautiful ones where you live.
It's hard to just pick one, though.
I liked Waimea when I lived there, but I was young, so I was always jumping off the rock and doing, like, now that's not the beach I want to go to, but when I was young and I lived there, that was my favorite beach.
Waimea is nice. I mean, that's where a lot of the, you know, the tourists go. I feel like a lot of the things that I do is built around trying to avoid the tourists and the heavy traffic, you know. I think Waimanalo Beach is probably one of the chillest beaches just because it's so sandy and there's very little reef. I don't think there's any reef out there. Plus you got the shade of the Sherwood trees and, you know, it's just a very nice place to gather. But typically we end up going up to Waialua, you know, North Shore. So kind of North Shore, but offset a little bit. That's one of my girlfriend's favorite beaches. But definitely nothing in town where we're not going to Ala Moana or anything because, too much sunscreen in the water, too much oil, whatever else is in there.
Naki's favorite's Haleiwa because that's where we vacationed for her 50th. And she got a beautiful house right on, like literally right on the beach. And she's ruined for other vacations.
My most favorite area. I ruined it for us, but we went back in January. But I love Haleiwa just because it's away from everything, and it's a little drive to get to town, but nobody cares. We just love being out that far out, so you don't really see, if any tourists. But I mean, and I got the nerves because we were tourists, but we was trying to act like we were locals. But it was awesome. But it's an amazing field that you're doing. I'm glad that we get to showcase software engineers and that kids get to see, you know, themselves in you and know that they can do this too, and know that if you can do it and there's someone out there that looks like me. I always cry when I do this, so forgive me, but I think it's such a blessing, and that we're honored that you came on just because I mean, and it's huge for us that you come on so that the kids can see that there's someone like them doing, you know, what you're doing, and that they're like, somewhere some kid's gonna go, software engineer, I'm gonna check that out. That sounds like something I want to do because Trevor sounded like a cool guy. You know what I mean? It's they just need that one person to give them a shove, right? And you're that person. I believe you're that person that's gonna shove a kid to be a software engineer or a music producer. I'm such a crybaby. I'm so sorry. We appreciate your time, Trevor. God bless you. Thank you so much for coming on and enjoy your journey. We're so proud. I mean, I know we just met, but I'm so proud of you. so proud of you, right? Like Auntie is so proud of you. So continue to do the work that you do. And thank you so much for sharing time with us.
So we sat there and looked at your bio before you know, when we put it up, and it was like, man, this guy is everything that we're trying to show, is like, you know, there's programming, software engineer, like those are the things, and they're out there. There's a bunch of us out there that aren't, so like, look, you can run a podcast, you can be in media, you can do all these things, but it's the matter of being able to put them out there and show them to thousands of people, like Naki said, that maybe there's a kid out there that sees it, and we have such a big ripple effect in lives that there's those kids who probably never even hear about the kid. The kid
Right.
probably never calls you up and says, "Hey, I saw you on a show," or "I saw you, you know, I met you here," or whatever. Usually, you don't even know. You don't even know that the shadow that you cast.
Right.
And that's really what we're all about. And what Naki's saying is that we're so proud of you and your story, and then thankful that you would share it. You know what I mean? That you
Yes.
would come on, because a lot of people are like, "What do you want me to do?" Like, come on and talk about myself. I don't want to talk about myself. So it is intimate. Any shout outs that you want to get out, or topics that you wanted to talk about that you had when you came in?
No, in my mind, I'm just talking about the journey, and I think you summed it up quite well. Like, when I do these things, whether it's, I'm releasing some drone footage or music or, just being out here in the industry, at the end of the day, as long as I can positively impact one person, all of it is worth it.
Yes.
Because like you said, we don't have much representation in this industry. And just by me being here, I am now a role model. But,
Yeah.
this is something that I've wanted to do for quite a long time, not just the podcast. We've got dreams of going back to Samoa and actually teaching kids how to develop software. And, I know there's some initiatives going on where they're trying to increase the bandwidth and they're laying cable and stuff like that. So,
That's awesome.
American Samoa, all of that fiber, all of that bandwidth you're getting, you're not going to be able to hide no more. And you're going to need to teach these kids how to use these tools,
So
Yes.
true.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And God bless your journey. And thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
All right, Trevor, and she's going to be calling your girlfriend.
Now I'm really going to stalk her.
All right.
Thanks
All right,
again.
take care.
Have a good evening.